Hey guys, how are y'all doing? Tonight I'm actually going to be making beef stew. It's a very simple recipe. It's probably about 6 main ingredients. Cook time, or prep and cook time, is about 30 minutes or so. It's not going to take too long to get it all together and in the pot and cooking. Overall though, cook time is going to be about 3.5 hours. It's a relatively easy recipe. It's something you can put on even in the morning or like the night before. Let it cook kind of overnight if you put it on low, and you know, have it ready for you in the morning. You can chill it and then reheat it again for dinner or something like that. So I hope you guys really enjoy this recipe. It's something really simple. I can't take full credit for it because I think it's a pretty basic beef stew recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and take you guys along shopping, and we'll go ahead and make the beef stew. Also, I'm really excited because today I looked at my videos and one of my videos hit 1,000 views. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and it, you know, gets me really excited, you know, knowing that people are watching. And one of the things I love so much is getting to be able to teach people how to cook and really show them some of the right techniques and show them some things that they can do that they never thought they could do, and they're really simple. So I get really excited about that, and thank you for everyone that hit the subscribe button when they watched my video and they really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate that. And guys, just thank you so much, and I'll keep making more videos because I really enjoy showing you guys kind of the things I do in my everyday life, and I really enjoy you guys showing you guys some of the things that I know as far as cooking goes and some of the recipes that I go. So let's go ahead and get this video started. Hey guys, so I think today I am going to make beef stew. So again, I brought you along on my shopping trip, so let's go ahead and get to it. So we're gonna start with the carrots. I think I'm actually gonna go with a 2-pound bag of carrots, ones that still need to be cut. I don't wanna go with any pre-cut because one, we're gonna try and save some money, and two, I have a certain way I like to get them cut for stew. These actually aren't that bad. $1.18 for a 2-pound bag of carrots, and it'll add a lot of substance to the stew. All right, I think I'm also gonna get some celery. I think celery goes very well with stew, and you actually get a decent amount of celery for a really good price. It looks like 79 cents each. That's really good. Like, we're gonna get a lot of vegetables and a lot of meat, a lot of heartiness to the stew for a small amount of money. All right, so we're gonna get a yellow onion again. I'm not really a huge fan of white onion, so you won't see me use white onion very often unless I need it for something specific. So we're gonna end up using a yellow onion, and that's it for that. So I'm debating against whether to use red potatoes or russet potatoes, but I think ultimately I'm gonna end up going with russet potatoes because of the fact that they have more starch to them than red potatoes. Red potatoes are a little more waxy. So because of the extra starch, that'll thicken up the stew, and I won't have to use as much flour to thicken the stew. All right, so I have the option of either getting the beef whole or getting it pre-cut. Right, if you can see here that when you get it pre-cut, it's $4.48 a pound. Right, so you're already paying for the luxury of it being pre-cut. And if you get it not cut, $3.97 a pound. So we're actually gonna get more beef because I'm gonna end up utilizing almost all of this. I'll show you how I'm gonna cut it to utilize most of this beef later in the video. But we're gonna go ahead and get this, even though it's a little bit more expensive, we're gonna get more beef in that one. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go with HEB beef broth. Right now it actually looks like it's on sale for 2 for $3, which is really a good price for beef broth. So I'm gonna end up using beef broth. Hopefully it's not too salty. Normally I go with beef stock over broth, but I actually don't see it here right now other than in the organic, and I don't really want to pay that extra price for it right now. I'm gonna start by peeling the potatoes and dicing those and getting that knocked out first. Alright, so I'm actually going to go with a medium to large dice on the potatoes, and the reason for that is because one, they're going to cook a while with the meat and in the stew, and I don't want them to get too soft and almost mushy, but I do want some of the starch to be able to fall off and still have the potato left, because the starch that's coming off the potato is going to be part of the reason that the stew gets thick. So I'm going to start here with, first, just kind of holding my knife. This is just basic maintenance on a knife. Alright, so I'm going to start with the potato. Start by cutting it in half. And so here, to get kind of a medium dice, I'll cut each half into 3s. And after getting each half into 3 pieces, I'm gonna do about 4 across. So you can see they're fairly decent sized dices. They're not too small, not like hash brown or like breakfast potato small, but a little bit larger than that. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the rest of these. Okay, now that we got all of those dice, I'm going to go ahead and just set them over to the side because we'll end up using them later. Okay, first I'm going to actually start with the celery, part of the vegetables besides the potatoes. So the onion and the carrots, I'm going to go ahead and start with the celery. You got the whole stalk of celery. A lot of times when you actually start like pulling it apart, right, so I'll cut it here at the end part, break that part off, and then I'm left with just the stalks. What you really want to do is all the leaves on the top part of the celery, you want to break off and not use that. It's very bitter and it doesn't have a very good like flavor to it. It's actually kind of chewy and flavorless. So we're going to go ahead and just pull all of this off of the celery, and then we'll start working with it from there. One thing I actually do with the celery also is I cut this kind of top part off, this top like expanding part off. I'll go ahead and cut those off on all of them. Just because, one, it's just kind of a little hard to work with, especially because I'm going to end up peeling these and utilizing them for the stew. And again, that's part of the flavor that's kind of bitter with the leaves, and I don't really want that to come across in the things that I'm cooking. All right, so I didn't have that much on there. I just cut a few of them off, and I'll work from there. So one thing that I'm going to do with the celery, which I'm not sure that a lot of people do, but one thing I am going to do is I'm actually going to peel the celery. So I'm going to use a peeler and I'm going to peel the top part of the celery. The reason for that is if you look at celery, it's got these strings that run through the top part of the celery. It's very chewy and it makes them bitter and hard to eat. You can actually do that if you're going to eat celery raw. So if you're going to eat it with like peanut butter or Nutella or something like that, and you don't want it to have that bitter flavor and you don't want it to be hard to chew, you can actually peel it. So I just take this one and I peel it. Not only does the flavor of the celery become a whole lot better, because this string part right here is actually really bitter and really chewy, it becomes just kind of easier to work with, and it'll actually cook a lot better. Interesting enough, if this is the first time you're doing it, you should taste it after actually peeling it, and you'll notice a noticeable difference. It'll have a much sweeter flavor to it. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the rest of these. Okay, now that we've got everything peeled, I'm going to try and go ahead and dice all of these to a similar size as the potatoes, but not quite as large. It's still going to be a medium dice on them due to the fact that they are going to cook for a while, and I don't want everything to come out super soggy and just too soft. I still wanted to have a small amount of bite. So as you can see, I'm going to cut them all to about this size. It's kind of hard to see like on the camera, but if you can see it in relation to like the knife and the other part of the celery, it's about a medium size, and if you look at the potato, they're almost about the same size. Alright, so now we're going to start on the carrots. I am not going to use quite all of these, but I'm going to use at least the more substantial, like, bigger ones. Actually, never mind. I'm going to end up using all of these. There's really not that many of them in there, and I'm going to go ahead and peel these also. The reason I'm going to peel them is because that outer layer, one, is just kind of dirty, and the fact that it's also kind of tougher on the carrot too, and it's bitter as well. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this. You know, you see that you got it peeled, you got a much cleaner carrot, and overall it's going to have a better flavor when you cook with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these peeled. Okay, now that I've got all these peeled, I'm gonna go ahead and cut them. I'm gonna show you the way that I'm gonna cut these because I want all of them to come out a similar size regardless of the size of the carrot. So I'm gonna start by just cutting both ends of the carrot. Right, so I've got a flat end on both ends of the carrot, right? So I'm gonna do what's called an oblique cut on the carrot, right? So first I'm gonna start with the smaller end of the carrot, and I'm gonna start by cutting it at a diagonal. Now, I know that it's kind of hard to see from that camera angle. Maybe I can kind of turn and show you here. So I'm gonna start by cutting it at an angle. So when you cut it at an angle, you're gonna get an interesting shape of the carrot. It's gonna have just a few different sides to it, and it's gonna overall be about a medium size, similar size to the potato, right? Now, after you do that and you've got it cut, and you cut it at an angle, you're gonna turn it about a quarter of a turn, and you're gonna end up cutting it at an angle again. And you're gonna continue to do that, quarter of a turn, cut at an angle, quarter of a turn, cut at an angle. And every time that you do the quarter of a turn and you cut at an angle, you're gonna adjust how much you're actually cutting of the carrot so that everything stays the same size. So no matter what end of the carrot you're at, every piece of the carrot is going to be a similar size, and it's all going to cook about the same. So if you take a look here, no matter what part of the carrot I cut, all of these pieces ended up coming out about the same size. So you can do that with a small carrot or a big carrot, and just kind of adjust how long that you cut it or how far up the carrot you got each time that you quarter turn and you cut the diagonal part of the carrot, so that way everything comes out the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting all these up, and then we'll start on the onion. Now we're gonna work on the onion. All right, so like before, I'm gonna go ahead and cut both ends of the onion. All right, so that you have both ends cut and you have a flat surface to work on. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the onion in half, using the core as a guide to know exactly where to cut in half. Once you've got it cut in half, you can go ahead and pull those top two layers of the onion off. Those top two onions of layer one are just, the top one is very unedible, and then the second layer is just kind of rubbery and chewy, and I don't really want that for the meal. All right, now you see that the onion's got natural lines all the way across it. What I'm gonna go ahead and do to kind of size it, I'm gonna use that as a guide. So about every 3 natural lines, I'm gonna go ahead and cut around the onion, right? So that way I get even sized dices and a pretty decent size, because I want them to be about a medium dice or a little bit medium to large dice, so that way when they cook with the stew, they don't get too soggy. So as you can see, it's all cut into about medium sized dices. I got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 overall slices all the way around the onion, and this was a relatively large onion, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut horizontal slits just in the onion, so it makes it easier to break up when you're actually slicing downward. So now that we've got that, I'm gonna go ahead and slice downward about, I don't know, about a ½ inch in size. right? So once this is all cut, they're not super small, and in relation to the potato, they're about half the size. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other part of this cut up, and then we'll start on the meat. All right, now we're gonna start with the beef. So I went ahead with the whole cut of beef just purely because I wanted to save money and I actually wanted to get a little bit more meat. And I'm gonna show you guys how to cut this so that we actually get a decent amount of meat for the stew. This is what's referred to as a chuck shoulder roast. And so it actually kind of looks like a big sirloin. It comes from, as the name dictates, from the shoulder part of the beef. Now when you look at this, it's got a nice thick line here of basically like tendon that holds the two muscles together. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is start by removing that part of the beef. All right, so in order to do that, I'm going to just cut along the inside of it and cut all the way down. I used to have a chef, when we referred to cutting meat, he used to say red is bread, right? Because the more red part that you keep, the more money you make when you're butchering large pieces of beef, right? So we want to make sure that we're not wasting a lot of meat as we're trying to cut this tendon out. So you want to try and get as close to the meat part as you can when you're cutting it out. One thing that I like to do is I'll cut like a little slit off of this part right here, and then I'll run my knife along the top part, lifting it up, pulling it over the knife, and then angling the knife at a top, like at an up angle, and then just kind of slicing along it. When you do that, you'll notice that it'll cut and you'll be left with just the tendon part and not much meat cut off of it. So we've got that along the outside part of it too, and we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing. It's what really is referred to as silver skin, and it's really just a tendon that holds the two muscles together. So if you can see here, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is just cut like a small slit at the end part. All right, let's see here. And just kind of get it started, right? Now that I've got it started, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same concept, pull it over the knife, angle the knife up, and then just kind of cut along it. Make sure you pull it really tight because that makes it for a lot easier to cut. Another reason I don't take the pre-cut beef is because honestly, a lot of times they miss a lot of this stuff as they're cubing the meat, and then you end up putting it in your stew and you have tough parts. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to eat tough parts. So for the most part, I got a lot of it off without cutting too much beef. Granted, I did cut some. That is okay. But the main objective is to try to get most of that cut. So now you know here, now that we've got all of that cut off, this part of it's not too bad. This is just something you can actually pull off by hand. The rest of this is just straight beef. Alright, so we're going to start by browning the meat in patches, or in two amounts. And the reason for that is because I don't think that the pan's quite big enough, and it'll get overwhelmed and we won't get the browning and the searing that we're actually really looking for. Also, I've already started preheating the slow cooker. I have it on high. Let's see here. We're also going to be using the slow cooker again. We're going to be using it to make the beef stew. So I've got that on high, and we're going to go ahead and start with browning the meat, and again I'm going to do it in 2 different batches so that way I can actually get the sear that I'm looking for. This application I'm actually going to probably use rubber spatula. So I'm going to let the pan kind of get hot. I'm not going to put any oil or anything in there. I actually set it between 8 and 9, just because I want it to get really hot and I want to get those sear on it really quickly. I'm going to do something different with the second batch that I'm not going to do with the first batch. Now, if you have a pan that's big enough, you can do it all in one batch, and you can do what I'm going to do to the second batch to all of it. So let's go ahead and get this started. The pan's already kind of hot. I can feel it. Being that I have a gas stove, it gets really hot really quickly. So I'm going to try and put it in there as evenly as possible so that way all of it gets browned evenly. So now what we're going to do, now that we got some nice browning on the end, I'm going to go ahead and try and turn them. Again, we're not trying to cook them all the way because they're going to cook in the slow cooker, but the idea is that they will get some browning on them and allow for those proteins to kind of caramelize and get some sugars on there. Again, this is the only opportunity you're going to have for it to brown, and so you want to go ahead and make sure that it gets really dark on as much of it as possible, which is why the pan's super hot. Now once you start to see kind of like the juices and everything come out of the meat, you're not getting any more searing, then you can go ahead and stop and actually go ahead and add it to the slow cooker. So now with the second batch, we're going to go ahead and add it in. We're going to do something a little different once we get a nice sear on it. Alright, now that it's started to stop searing and a lot of the juices have come out, I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat down to about 6 or like medium, about halfway, because what I'm going to do, I don't want everything to burn in there, and it's kind of a really sensitive part of the process, and if it's too high, you'll actually get some burn from what I'm about to do. So I'm using an 1/8 cup. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 1/8 cups of oil. Right, so about a 1/4 cup of oil to the meat. We'll kind of go ahead and just get it all stirred around and let it really coat the outside of the meat. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add, and the reason I use the 1/8 cup is we're going to go ahead and add flour. Now since I added 2 cups of oil, or 2 1/8 cups of oil, a 1/4 cup of oil, I'm going to go ahead and add a 1/4 cup of flour as well. Just going to go ahead and add it into the pan. And I'm going to just go ahead and give it a good stir. Now we want to let this cook a little bit on the meat. Not too much, but just enough to really get rid of that flour smell. You'll start to smell the flour cooking, and you'll get kind of this nutty smell when you realize that it's actually fully cooked. You don't want it to burn, right? So you want to kind of keep turning it and letting it really kind of cook evenly. Don't let it really stick to the pan. Make sure you use your spatula to pull up as much of it as possible. You can also use a wooden spatula, which is a little bit easier, and just kind of keep making sure that it doesn't get stuck to the bottom of the pan. It's not and it's not burning. Alright, so now I'm starting to get that nutty smell to it and know that that flour is done. I'm no longer getting really a raw flour smell anymore. And it's got almost a nuttiness to it. So that's how you know it's ready. So we're going to go ahead and put that in the slow cooker as well. So we've got our mixture of onion, carrots, and celery. We're going to go ahead and just add that into the pan. Now, what we can do, because this is kind of overwhelming for the pan, we can add a little bit of oil into it. I would say probably another 1/8 cup or so of oil. Again, I use vegetable oil. Right now I'm using Crisco vegetable oil. Because of its high cook point, I can actually turn the pan up to relatively high and it won't smoke, it won't burn, and it'll actually allow the food to cook. If you're using something like olive oil, which has a very low cook point, the higher you turn the pan on olive oil, it'll start to actually smoke and you won't get the results you're looking for. The oil itself will actually burn. Now that we've actually got them cooked down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and add the seasonings into this and fry them a little bit. At this point, I have the pan on high, and I'm really just letting the vegetables get heat really hot, like get hit really hard with the heat So that way we get some actual like searing and browning on it. You can notice some of the onions are starting to turn a little bit darker yellow and get some brown on it. We're gonna really start to release some of the sugars and the flavors of it. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm going to use garlic powder. So I'm gonna go ahead and get about, I'm actually gonna hit this kind of hard with garlic powder. So I'm gonna do about a tablespoon and a half. Well, about 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. I'm also gonna do a tablespoon of ground cumin or ground comino. I'm also gonna add a tablespoon and a half of pepper and salt. I'm gonna go ahead and mix those in really good with the vegetables and let them also get a little bit of frying to them. As you're frying the seasonings, you're really gonna smell the release of the flavor of them, and it's gonna add an extra like boost to it as it's really cooking with the stew. I like doing it this way versus just putting them raw directly into the liquid and into the stew, because it really helps, like I said, release those flavors of that seasoning. All right, so now that we've got these like really fried into the vegetables, we're gonna go ahead and add everything into the slow cooker. You'll notice once we actually add everything into this, and I have a relatively large slow cooker, once you add everything into it, it's gonna seem like there's not gonna be a lot of room for the liquid, but that's okay. That's gonna be because everything's really gonna cook down and become smaller as it starts to cook down. So now we're gonna go ahead and add the potatoes in. And we're just gonna give it a nice good stir and get everything nice and incorporated into it. Like I said, it's gonna seem really full and not like it's got a lot of room, but all this stuff is really gonna cook down. The beef, the potatoes, the carrots, they're really gonna reduce in size as everything cooks. All right, now that we've got everything in there, we can go ahead and add the beef broth. So now, you remember I bought 2 of them. I'm gonna go ahead and just start with 1, and as it needs more liquid, I can always add more into it. I'll kind of check on it about every hour or so just to see where it's at. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add the beef broth directly in there. I've got the slow cooker set to high. This should only take about 2.5 to 3 hours to cook total, with it being on high. Actually, it looks like I can go ahead and add at least some of the second one in there because I want it full to the top. Because, like I said, it's gonna reduce down as some of the water evaporates and it cooks. And you're gonna be left with mostly just meat flavor, and the vegetables are gonna reduce. So just kind of even it out here. And I'm gonna let it sit for about an hour or so. We'll come back to it in an hour and check and see where our progress is at on it. Okay, so about 4 hours later, after everything's cooked on high, the beef has gotten really soft. We started to get a nice color to the broth. All the vegetables are soft, and we've got a nice consistency to the juice. I like it to be kind of a soupy consistency with some heartiness to it, which is why I didn't put a lot of flour, and the potatoes just kind of naturally thickened it a little bit themselves. If you wanted a little bit thicker, you would just add a little bit more flour and a little bit more oil when you're cooking the beef. And if you wanted it also to be a little more thicker on top of that, you would add a little bit more potatoes, so the starch would fall off the potatoes and thicken this overall. You could also let it cook for a little longer without the lid, and that would bring some of the extra water out and also thicken it a little bit too. But this is kind of the consistency that I'm going for. I want it to be a little soupy with the vegetables and everything still keeping it pretty thick with heartiness to it. So overall, I think it turned out really good. I just tried it, and the seasoning is like perfectly on point. So if you guys like this recipe, please click the like button. And also, if you guys want to see more recipes and you want to continue to see more demos of me making different recipes, go ahead and press the subscribe button. Again, thank you for the view. Thank you for watching my recipe, and I really appreciate it. I'm thinking for the next time, I'm going to do some breakfast items, so you can look forward to that for my next video.